This is Creatively Speaking Radio. I am your host, Luana Helena. Welcome and thank you for listening to episode 101, brought to you by Audible. Get a free audiobook download and 30-day free trial at audibletrial.com/creatively-speaking. Over 180,000 titles to choose from for your iPhone, Android, Kindle, or MP3 player. Today's guest is author M.L.Ruscsak. Born in 1982, a native to Lorain, Ohio, Melissa grew up living with her grandparents, Francis and James LaShore. She attended Clearview High School, as well as Lorain County JVS. While in JVS, she attended the Culinary Arts program, graduating in 2001. In 2003, she welcomed the addition of her daughter, Cheyenne, who inspired her to start to put her dreams to paper. A story she wrote after her daughter's birth, although not published, became the stepping stone to everything else she would eventually write. In 2011, near tragedy struck as Melissa's health began to decline. By summer of 2011, she would need to use a cane to get around. Suffering a stroke, she required a craniotomy where she suffered her second stroke, leaving her with a partial impairment of her speech and weakness on her right side. After surgery, she would need to learn not only to walk again, but speak, as well as recognize the alphabet. 2 years later, in the fall of 2012, after a divorce, she would meet the man who would push her not only to fight to regain her physical strength, but to put her creative mind to work, no longer allowing her to dwell on what she could no longer do, but what she could. In December of 2013, they would marry. With determination, Melissa would walk down the aisle without the need of a cane. In 2016, she would see her dream come true. With her daughter as her editor, Of Light and Dark was born. To learn more about M.L.Ruscsak and her work, please visit her Amazon author page. Just search for her name, or you can click directly on the link here on Blog Talk Radio, and it's also included in our Facebook event for today at Create Radio Station on Facebook. And of course, for more information, just stay here with us at Creatively Speaking as we get right into today's interview after a very quick word from a sponsor.
Your angel has a message for you. To receive intuitive guidance from your angels, simply email your request to graceonmyjourney@gmail.com. Make an $11 exchange at paypal.me/gracefulg and receive your personal angelic intuitive message.
Welcome back. If you're just joining us, thank you for listening. Once again, I'm Luana Helena, host of Creatively Speaking, and our guest today is M.L.Ruscsak, author of The Light and Dark, author of, let me say this correctly, Of Light and Dark series. The name of the series is Of Light and Dark, and we'll get a chance to hear a bit of an excerpt as we get into our interview today. But first, let me welcome you, Melissa, to Creatively Speaking Radio. Thank you so much for joining us today.
Thank you so much for having me today.
Yes, it is such a pleasure. And my first question is always to get listeners and audience members and myself as well all on the same page. What do you create, Melissa, and how long have you been creating?
I'm an author as well as a film producer. So I create my works of fiction in the book world and works of everything else in the movie world.
Wow. So books and films, mostly works of fiction in books, and then, as you said, everything else that we can see on screen, you do that in the film world. So can you share with us your creative process? I know I mentioned in the introduction for Of Light and Dark, it started with a story after your daughter's birth, and then, she was able several years later to be your editor, so we know that there was a process and a journey there. But just in general, it actually could be specifically for Of Light and Dark or in general, like including your films. What is your creative process like? How do you go from a concept to completion?
Well, for books and films is two different worlds altogether. So for books, I asked my daughter for a topic. Like, what does she want you to write about? She said, a princess that's a fairy. okay, let's do that. I said, okay, so give me a working title that I can play with. So she came up with Of Light and Dark. So within 3 days, I had a concept. So I just started writing about a fairy princess. And I was like, okay, I have to keep it kind of PG-13 because at the time she was 13 years old.
Oh, okay.
So, yeah, so I kept it young adult. Well, as I'm getting into it, first draft is PG-13. I sold about 10 books. Then I was picked up by a publisher, went through a lot of editing. Now it's PG-17. So, so we went through that one. There's an issue with the publisher, so I got picked up by another publisher within 30 days. Re-edited, still at PG-17.
Okay.
Now we're into the movie version, which is still longer than any of the previous versions. It's the one that you can buy now. And it was all started off, I just started writing. Well, when I got the second book wrote of the series, which is The Fallen of Light and Dark, I was like, there's a huge gap between the prequel and the first book. So you have to fill in the gap. So that's how we got the movie version. It's filling in the gaps between 1 and 2. And then I was like, there's so much backstory going on. I have to write a third book, which is actually 4 novellas in one book.
Oh, okay, cool.
So that really ties in everything, and you get the complete backstory.
Okay.
Now, switching over to the film, we started out with the first book and doing the screenplay. Then I did I already had the concept there. So I just broke it down to a screenplay, made the concept art, the storyboard, and everything to go with it. And now we start film production later this year.
Oh, wow. So it's been quite a process here. The theme that I kind of picked up as you were talking is a lot was birthed out of necessity, it seems. Like you said, there was a prequel and then a huge gap. So you kind of almost needed to fill in the gap there. And as they say, necessity is the mother of invention. So it kind of is part of your process there. Like, okay, I created this, but no, this needs something else. So it kind of pushes you to create something to fill that space. And then also just having that, your daughter's suggestion, that sounds really great. It kind of reminds me of, when you see people doing like improv and they're taking suggestions from the audience and just kind of putting it all together and making it work on stage. So taking this fairy princess idea and Of Light and Dark as the title, running with it, starting so that it's age appropriate for her, and then, developing it to borderline R, as you said, PG-17. Still something, she can read now, I'm sure. But, it just sounds like as things were needed or kind of presented themselves, you kind of moved in that direction. So sounds like a very, kind of an organic flow to your process overall. And I do want to give our audience a chance to hear from this series. We've talked about it. Again, the title audience of the whole series is Of Light and Dark. And I want to give you, Melissa, a chance to read to us an excerpt from the latest novel of that series, Secrets, Lies, and Betrayal, is it? Let me see.
Yes. As I mentioned, there's 4 books within this one book. I won't tell you what story it is, but it is a chapter 11. I will say that much.
Okay. So whenever you're ready, go ahead and share that with us.
Deep within the castle of bone, Karnak sat at his old writing desk. A new journal sat open just in front of him, the seer stone delicately resting upon the table. The time was drawing near. Time was running out. He could feel it. He could feel the threads of fate beginning to weave together. He could feel the secrets of the past coming unraveled. Yet he was powerless to stop it, powerless to speak about what he saw. Prim knew about the existence of the boy, of Medrin. She knew had found the bride he was meant to wed in order to bear the prophesied daughter. Her dream was coming to reality. But with every step closer to the daughter of the darkness being born, it was another step closer to the war that none might win. His queen had chosen her pawns well, her knights. She had chosen to give power to a child that wasn't even born yet, a child that may want nothing to do with her war. Yet Magnus had chosen his pawns as well. He had chosen the sister of Adriana to entice Medrin to her bed, an invitation that was met with a short blade held to her throat. Medrin might have killed her if she had been anyone less than the crown princess. Yet something told him if Celeste made another attempt, Medrin would do more than just kill her. His temper could rarely be contained, and his powers, those inherited dark abilities that had not only come from his bloodline, but also from those he had tapped into from the catacombs of Pallas. Those abilities were seldom controlled. This was by his own will. Taking a deep breath, Karnak opened his eyes, trying to stay calm. His nerves from the last report to the goddess, and it would be his last report that he would be allowed to give her. Dipping the quill into the dark ink, he flipped open the first page. Fine parchment, gold flakes held within the fibers. One day this journal would go to the queen of the Under Kingdom. One day she would wear the crown of bone, and one day she would hold the scepter of the dead. But right now those things were entrusted into his care, entrusted to look after until the queen held the power to rule over those who have been created by the goddess, those who held the power of the Fae that the Fae could only dream of. The tip of the quill barely touched the page as a soft sound on his plain wooden door. No need to look to see who is disturbing him. No need to wonder what she wanted. Barely glancing up from his work, he asked, Freya, what brings the famed general to knock once more upon my door? She was dressed in a long, flowing skirt made of the finest foliage that no longer grew. Her bodice barely covered her. You spoke to the goddess, not a question, not seeking confirmation either. Carefully, he placed the quill back into his holder and turned to see her. I gave my last report to the goddess, and she left me with instructions. As she gracefully drew closer, her vines that wrapped around her arms dissolved into her honey skin, her skirt turning into a pair of tight black leggings, and her bodice turning into a corset. She was prepared to fight if need to be. Not good, as she was looking at him as prey instead of a friend. My dear, what is spoken between the goddess and myself is private. She stopped at the edge of his desk and said on top of his papers, I received a note from her today. Most peculiar, since you're the only one that's seen or heard from her in far too long. A note? The goddess penned a note. Peculiar? No, this wasn't peculiar. This was, well, he didn't know what this was, but it was not good. Not if Freya was here to discuss it. Licking his lips, he tried to sound intrigued and friendly, tried not to sound afraid. And what did the goddess say? Leaning close to his ear, she growled, that King Magnus can give the order to send me to protect the child. You wouldn't know anything about that, would you? Magnus had been fighting to liberate the handful of stars. Recently, he had been wounded and was hiding. And where he was hiding, not even the shadows could locate him. It was assumed he had been captured, been assumed that the war was turning in favor of Pallas. Yet, there was another message there. If Prim had given an order that, I'm sure Prim had her reasons. Perhaps in time we would be privileged to find out why. He did not see her move, but he did hear the refusal of the blade in the air. Curtis being stuck in the wood of his death. One way or another, I would be the personal guard of that child that rules the stars. You hear me, scribe? Those who in power now have no idea how to protect the child with those powers. I do. Yes, she did. And she did know how to bury any that had tried to stop her, and that included King Magnus. I will convey your request to Magnus as soon as it could be found. That's all.
Wow. Thank you so much for reading that for us. It's such an intriguing story, even just from, jumping in chapter 11, as you said you were reading from, without the foreknowledge or knowing what's coming next. I could pretty much get into it. I am picking up, there's murder potentially, there's a war, there's a supernatural theme, references to a goddess, and, kind of magically changing clothing and armor and, all of that stuff. And then the repeated mention of this coming child who has powers and just kind of everything that you love in a good fantasy novel. And there's so much packed into just that excerpt you gave us. So definitely the series sounds very promising for people who are fans of this type of writing, which I am as well. It's nice to get away every once in a while from whatever it is that we're living around and just kind of go to another world. I feel as you were reading, it's like, okay, I'm kind of transported here. It's palace, castle, different setting, different time, or even a timeless era. And, all very, very engaging to listen to as well. So when people read your work, or someone like me or any of our listeners who just heard your work being read, or even your films or anything that you do, what would you ideally like the big takeaway or benefit to be for someone engaging with your work?
Regardless if it's written or in film form, don't believe everything you see or everything you hear. Don't believe everything you read. There is double meanings to everything.
Wow. Definitely an interesting note to take away, that there are double meanings to everything. So don't believe everything, just kind of at face value. Wow. And for any listeners who would like to be as successful as you are in this arena of books and film, or either, actually, what advice would you have for someone aspiring to success in these areas?
Don't take no for an answer. No is an opportunity to find someone that will believe in you.
Oh, wow. No is an opportunity. That is great advice. For many of us, we treat it like the end of the road. I asked, they said no, I guess it won't happen. It's kind of the way we go. But no, it is an opportunity. Not that person. Now let's take the opportunity and find the other person who will believe in you and will support you. Wow. Great perspective on that, because we know we get tons of no's with anything we do, whether we act an audition or we write, try to find a publisher, or even just trying to sell books. Some readers gravitate towards our type of writing, and others go in a different direction. So to just filter through all those no's and treat them as opportunities definitely is an encouraging way to move through to our path to success, whatever that may look like for each of us. And can you share with us if you have any new or upcoming or just, ongoing projects that you'd like to talk about?
Well, I've talked about the upcoming film for The New Reign. There's also the upcoming film being produced called Down the Rabbit Hole, which was also based on a book by Kristen Collins that I did the script for. I have the film Passion's Captive Heart that will also be going into filming later this fall.
Mhm.
that will be probably, I can't say words, but that will be a made for TV movie. I can't say that much.
Okay.
There's yeah. Yeah. That's one of my lower budget ones, but it's fun. It's historical fiction. I love it. It actually goes with the Midwest, but from the Native Americans' point of view.
Mm.
And,
Wow.
and we have a lot of Native Americans giving us feedback to make sure it's represented accurately, even though it's a fiction.
Mhm.
So
Wow.
we do respect those that came before us in the time period.
Yes,
I have
a different perspective. Mm-hmm.
Yes, and I have 5 books coming out later this year.
Mm-hmm.
One is a brief synopsis, 1 year in my life. It's in the 2019 A Moment in Time anthology through Wild Dreams Publishing, which publishes most of my books.
Mm-hmm.
I also have the Obsidian Chronicles, which takes place during the Light and Dark series, but is a separate series, but blends into the series, if that makes sense.
Okay. Yes.
To my readers. And I just picked up a couple movies that will begin filming next year as well.
Oh, wow. So quite a busy year and going into next year for you. Films, 5 books, as you mentioned, and then more films coming up next year. And where can we learn more about these projects when they are completed, or just go now and find your past work, past films? Where can we see the films, buy the books, that kind of thing?
The most up-to-date information is my Facebook pages. You can find my personal page, author M.L.Ruscsak at Facebook, or just put in M.L.Ruscsak to my fan page, and all that information, the pages to the movies is there, pages to other authors that I also promote is there. All the information I do is all held on Facebook because it's quick, it's easy, and unfortunately, I don't have a PA to keep up with a website.
Right. Okay, so Facebook is definitely the best place to go. Author M.L.Ruscsak, and M.L.Ruscsak, or Act of Light and Dark, would get you to Melissa's pages, guys, and that's where she'll keep all this information updated for you. There's so much going on currently, it sounds like, and coming up next year, and so much she's already done in the past if you want to just play catch up as you wait for, the remaining parts of her series and her other work. So Facebook is the best place to look for her. And let's see, and can we get a link there of to purchase the series, the books, or are those on Amazon? Get a hold of those.
You can get the Amazon link to the book on my Facebook fan page, or you can Google Amazon, or Google my name is actually M.L.Ruscsak, and all of my books will show up on Google Buy, or so however that you want to. It comes up on Google where you can buy it from Google, or you can go right to Amazon.
All right. So to get a hold of books, there is Amazon, and as I mentioned earlier, the Amazon author page link is here, or you can get a link to it through Facebook, Melissa's Facebook pages that we mentioned before. So, wow, we had quite a bit of information, a lot of inspiration as well, and great advice from you. I thoroughly enjoyed your excerpt and hope to add this series to my summer reading list. Be doing a couple more shows, and then I have, a couple months off. So I love reading during summer. It gets to triple digits here. So, I don't even want to go outside. So I look forward to reading some of your work this summer. And
well, thank you.
Kind of yes, keeping up with you on social media as well to see what's coming up and when. So, in closing, we have a few extra minutes here before we close out. Do you have anything you'd like to just kind of close with or share with listeners, audience members, final words before we close for today?
Well, with my series, there's two ways to read this, and the actors portraying in the movies have also discovered this. You can start in the middle at the first book. If you do that and then read it in the order they're published, you get one meaning. If you read it with the second book, third book, and then the first book, the meaning of the book is completely different.
Okay.
So
add a little
really
more intrigue here.
And what perspective you want to take away from reading.
Okay. So you can either read it in the published order, or then you or the second option was to start with the second, then
third, and then the first book.
And then the first book. Okay. It almost started, it kind of reminds me a little bit of Star Wars, you know, how they, made them and then they kind of went back later and then now you can watch them in one order. Yeah. It depends on when you were born, I guess, what order you end up watching it in. But wow, that is interesting to know. Thanks for sharing that because then, that'll kind of help me make a decision where I start and then go from there. And I'm sure that will help listeners as well, which way or which direction to go in reading this series. And again, this is Of Light and Dark is the title of the series. And our guest has been M.L.Ruscsak. And thank you so much for being our guest. It's definitely been a pleasure creatively speaking with you today, Melissa.
And again, thank you so much for having me on the show today.
Yes, it was our pleasure. And, of course, thanks to you, our Creatively Speaking audience, for listening in, as always, live here with us today, and those who will be listening to our replay or archives. And for you listeners, Audible is offering a free audiobook download with a free 30-day trial to give you the opportunity to check out their service. So to download your free audiobook today, go to audibletrial.com/creatively-speaking. Again, that's audibletrial.com/creatively-speaking for your free audiobook. Thanks again for joining us. Be sure to tune in next Saturday at 9 a.m. Pacific time, as always, for a new show featuring Alicia Rain Patterson. And as always, I pray you all have a very, very creative day. And one final note before we go, attention all authors. Former Creatively Speaking guests, the And I Thought ladies, are hosting their book awards this year. They host a virtual Thoughtful Book Festival every year. This year it's on August 31st. And there's a nominal $20 fee to submit your book for consideration for one of their book awards. So if you're interested, you can contact them directly by email, ladies@andwethought.com, or go to their webpage, which is andwethought.com, and click on the contact button. They'll give you more information about those awards. So have a great weekend, everyone. Happy summer, which got kicked off yesterday. And we'll talk to you again in a week. Bye. Enjoy the rest of your weekend.